I'm back in the van for another book. This one is Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. It's a 2003 book. And the way I found out about this one is when I had Bioshock Infinite. I don't know if it's true, but somebody on a message board, it's probably GameFAQs or something, was telling me that the book or the game was inspired by this book. Oh, yeah, I like my fucking... Check out my school shirt. I got my button up today. But yeah, that's how I heard about it, is this book. It's been on my reading list for like a decade now, because I got the game, when it came out, like 2012, I believe, or something. And somebody mentioned it. You know, I said, yeah, it's based on this book called Devil in the White City, or heavily inspired it. And I don't know, it's just, might have been just one guy on a message board just making shit up, because reading it, I can't see exactly how it would inspire the game, but, I mean, I guess you could, you know, the White, I don't know, the fucking White City, maybe, I don't know, it's like, I don't remember the plot of the game that well. There's that guy in a Booker or something, DeWitt. Anyway, it's not exactly Ayn Rand, I guess, or, yeah. Alright, so, for this, I feel like this book seems to be talked about enough to where, like, for instance, Kaylee the other day, she said, oh, it's funny you mentioned it, because I just saw a review for this book, and I never see book reviews. And so, I'm going to keep just, like, randomly pulling it up. But, yeah, I mean, this book, I've seen it mentioned enough times to where I don't feel it's so obscure that, like, I'm figuring if you want to read a review for this, you probably already read it. So I'm not going to dwell too much and, you know, do some other reviewer had already done or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I might point out, like, a few things about it. One thing, oh yeah, there's a few interesting details before I get to what I'm going to do next for this. So, I thought it was interesting. They had Mark Twain, apparently, was showing up to visit the White City during the, what the fuck do you call it? The Columbian World Fair? Because it was a competition with Paris, apparently, is how it gets started. This guy named Daniel Burnham. And what's funny enough is another guy was named Burnham that was involved in a fire that broke out and killed some firefighters. Anyway, that's how my mind, you know, it's like chain reaction. But, now what the fuck was I saying? So it's based on this Columbian World Fair where Paris had this exposition. They're like, we're going to show you that America can do a great exposition. So they decided to host this World Fair, and it's New York and Chicago's competing. Also St. Louis competing, but no one really takes them seriously at the time. And I mean, Chicago, I don't know how the fuck Chicago managed to pull it out, you know, over in New York, but, you know, they were seen as like this pig, I think they call it like a pig butcher town, or, you know, bacon town, or some ham town, something like that. It was like just some, you know, a bunch of hicks, basically. So, I'm glad whenever New York or California, you know, gets their comeuppance, because they're so fucking oversaturated in American media and culture. Alright, so anyway, Mark Twain, he showed up to visit the White City, but he was sick. He was in his hotel for like 11 days, and he decided to just go home, I guess. He never even saw it, even though he came out to see it, but he was like too sick, so he's like, fuck it, I'm going home, Mark Twain. Oh yeah, so just, I guess it's interesting is that there's there's two main threads as far as I understand. The Daniel Burnham guy, and then you flip to somebody else who is the serial killer H.H. Holmes, which I learned in a Joe Scott video, I think, that or at least he claims that his murders were overstated. I've never seen that anywhere else, so I don't know. But it's interesting what he pulls off, just from what I've read in here. He seems to usually he does this method where he has this vault, and he's like, would you go and retrieve something for me in there? And just locks them in there and just listens to them as they die. He just gets off on that. So he'll just like lock them in a vault pretty much until they expire, you know. Which is I mean, I guess it's a good murder method. Not exactly like this House of Horrors, but I mean, because he could flood it with gas, but it wasn't like he had a bunch of crazy rooms from how I understand this book. Of course, I'm only in, if you can see this, I'm on page 334. I haven't finished all of it. That's kind of my thing here on Greg Huffman book report. Not Dreadsab book report. Just Greg Huffman book report. Though I did start a Dreadsab opinions recently. Alright, what else was I going to say before I go to the next part? Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Oh, yeah, so, as H.H. Holmes, one interesting thing about him is he has, like, this room full of pissed-off investors. And they talk about this book, how he's just so charming. Like, he just has such this charisma and just charm about him to where he can kind of get his way. So, finally, they get a whole room of investors that he's all been fucking over to like get money out of, like get property and never pay them back. So he finally gets tricked into coming to one of these meetings with a lot of them, which he just thought it was one guy, and he'd been using fake names the whole time. But eventually he's like, oh man, but we had this. There's this. Oh, is it 1873? There's this great panic. I can't remember the exact year. It might be 1873. You can look it up. It's a historical event. But he's like, oh man, because of this historical event, and he just like gets so sad about it. And he's like, oh, and the main guy who knows he's full of shit and suspects him as a severe criminal. I can't remember his name right off. It doesn't matter though. But he's like, what the fuck? I can't believe he's like convincing these other people, because the other people are starting to take pity on him. And then this one guy calls. He's like, oh man, we should. He comes with some deal like accept his mortgage or something, and then he's like, go to the other room. He tells H.H. Holmes, just all right, let's go to the other room and we're gonna talk it out. And so the guy who suggested it was rebuffed, the mortgage deal. It was like, all right, I'm cool with that. Apparently, they changed their mind again, the lawyers, and were back against H.H. Holmes, and they were going to, they had cops there and everything. But there's the belief that the lawyer, it was like a lawyer or something, or I don't know. But the guy that got rebuffed, he was so pissed about it, he went and told, sorry, that was my stepson, Bob. Told him, he might want to do like I don't think he's ready for that though. Alright, so anyway, yeah, back to this. Anyway, he told the other, god damn it, now I lost my train of thought. But he went and told H.H. Holmes that what they were planning, so the dude fled. But then there's this almost a third thread, but it's kind of more tied to the Daniel Burnham one, because he met the mayor. The mayor's like Carter Harrison. And I think that, yeah, Carter Harrison. So this guy named Patrick Prendergast, he was like warped in the head and thought for some reason he was like this fan of Carter, but like one of those nutty job fans, and for some reason he thought he was going to get some cabinet position or some shit, and he shows up and he's like telling the current guy, he's like, all right, are you gonna, I'm next in line, and they just started laughing at him and like, just want to take over right now, and then he just hates how he's mauling, so he fucking shows up and talks about, he just shoots the fucking mayor, Carter Harrison. There's actually a funny, I know it's dark humor, and since it really happened especially, but there's a funny page, I'm going to get into that. Actually, I'll start to talk about that now. So, this, since this is so talked about, I don't want to go into more than I've already said, I guess, because it's so, whatever, well known. I'm just going to show some of my favorite passages from it, I think, for the rest of this, and yeah, we'll just do that. Alright, so here we go. Alright, this is the little passage. I was trying to remember what I thought was so hilarious about it. Maybe the if I'm not including enough context, but it talks about this guy who he goes, Burnham goes to this man, Sherman, I guess is the father-in-law, is like, he tries to call off this wedding because of a scandal, and the dad's like, there's a black sheep in every family, and then it says, later Sherman, a married man, was run off to Europe with the daughter of a friend, and then Burnham and Margaret married, blah blah blah, but then it says Sherman did not trust him because he thought Burnham drank too much. Silly. This is a guy named John Root. He was the partner of Daniel Burnham, and it says he married this chick who started to die of tuberculosis, but despite all that, he wanted to go along with it. The disease rapidly gained ground, but remained committed to the engagement. People knew he was marrying a dead woman. And then there was the poet Harriet Monroe was a friend of the family. A long wait frightened us, Harriet Monroe said. But at last the bride, on her father's arm, appeared like a white ghost at the halfway landing, and slowly, oh so hesitatingly, dragging her heavy satin train, stepped down the wide stairway and across the floor to the bay window, which was gay with flowers and vines. So gay. The effect was weirdly sad. Bruce was thin and pale and could only whisper her vows. Her gaiety wrote, seemed like jewels on a school. Within 6 weeks she was dead. Yeah. And that shows kind of how he kept his, you know, elaborate fucking mansion of horrors going. He had a lot of just turnout. He'd berate them for shoddy work until they quit or fired. Construction proceeded slowly, but a fraction of the proper cost. And then they kept a number of the individuals who understood the building's secrets. Yeah, anyway, you can read that. A certain task, so it's like, you know, it's like a need to know basis, or like it's so broken up, you know, you don't really see the forest for the trees, as the saying goes. Narrow context within the worker function. The assignment could seem reasonable, or at worst merely eccentric. And there's an interesting part on this next page where he's talking to this bricklayer about, he's like, oh, you don't make enough money, blah 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 blah. He asked me if I wouldn't like to make more money than that, and of course I told him yes. Came over to me and pointing down to the basement said, you see that man down there? Well, that's my brother-in-law. He has got no love for me. Neither have I for him. Now, it would be the easiest matter for you to drop a stone on that fellow's head while you're at work, and I'll give you $50 if you do. Was Holmes' matter as he made the offer. About the same one would expect from a friend who was asking the most trivial question. So silly. I found this. Alright, if it'll focus. Focus. Alright. I found this interesting since I just read that one book that talked about AC versus DC. General Electric offered the job for $1.8 million, insisting that the deal would not earn a penny's profit. Blah blah blah. A lot of people urged him because they had stock in that shit. Accept the bid. Calling it extortionate. General Electric miraculously came back with a bid of blah blah blah. But Westinghouse, who A-System was inherently cheaper and more efficient, bid $399,000. The exposition went with Westinghouse and helped change the history of electricity. Yeah, so like I said, it says a number of the exposition directors held stock in GE. Shady motherfuckers. This, I'm not going to read it, but if anybody, just you can pause it if you want to read this. But it talks about how the Pledge of Allegiance got started around that by Francis J. Bellamy. So, pause now. If it's on, yeah. Anyway, bye. Oh yeah, I want to go back to the beginning. I just like this this made me curious where he's doing his little thanks at the beginning. And to Molly, whose lust for socks kept us all on our toes. Interesting. I like my socks too. Mine are kind of I always have mismatched silly socks. What's this one? Oh, it says Mario's on it. Anyway. See, you see how small this one on Prendergast is? It's just like this small little fucking paragraph in this little chapter. Then, and this shows some of the shit that introduced at the fair. Aunt Jemima's, whatever happened to that? It's the Pearl Mining Company now. Juicy fruit. Shredded wheat, which people said tastes like shredded doormat. What else? There's some other shit. I think there's on the other page. There's Cracker Jack. Let's see. What else is there? Oh, Pabst Blue Ribbon. Gross. I hate all beer. I think even the Dewey Decimal System says introduced there. Some soap. Oh, there's a Statue of Liberty card from Salt. Somebody called it Lot's Wife. It's very funny. Alright, this was actually talking about, like, that, once the fair started. This is on, page 249, I think. Could have showed off the pages for these, but whatever. Someone asked, in which building is the Pope? One woman asked. She was overheard by writer Teresa Dean, who wrote a daily column from the fair. The Pope is not here, madame, the guard said. Where is he? In Italy, Europe, madame. The woman frowned. Which way is that? Convinced now that the woman was joking, the guard cheerfully quipped, 3 blocks under the lagoon. She said, how do I get there? Can you tell me where the building is with the artificial human beings? Oh, Lord. But yeah, silly questions guards get there. Alright, so this page talks about the introduction of the Ferris wheel. The first Ferris wheel, and the real Ferris wheel, really was debuted at this fair. What page is this again? 287, yeah. Boom. And it talks about this guy who realized he had it says Latin fear of heights. Okay. One ride, a Latin terror of heights, suddenly overwhelmed an otherwise peaceful man named Werrett. He was fine until the car began to move. As it rose, he began to feel ill and nearly fainted. There was no way to signal the engineer below to stop the wheel. Werrett staggered in panic from one end of the car to the other, driving passengers before him like scared sheep. According to one account, he began throwing himself at the walls of the car with such power that he managed to bend some of the protective iron. The conductor and several male passengers tried to subdue him, but he shook them off and raced for the door. In accord with the wheel's operating procedures, the conductor had locked the door at the start, blah blah blah, decided to brake. Could not get it open. Shook, get and broke as the car entered its descent, where it became calmer and laughed and sobbed with relief. Until he realized the wheel was not going to stop. Continue on the next page. It always made 2 full revolutions, where it again went wild, and again the conductor and his allies subdued him, but they were growing tired. They feared what might happen if Ware escaped them. Structurally, the car was sound, but its walls, windows, and doors had been designed merely to discourage attempts at self-destruction, not to resist a human pile driver. Had broken glass and bent iron. To her astonishment of all aboard, she slipped the skirt off and threw it over Ware's head, then held it in place while murmuring gentle assurances. The effect was immediate. Where it became as quiet as an ostrich. A woman disrobing in public, a man with a skirt over his head. The marvels of the fair seemed endless. Alright, this is the last one I'm going to show off. I thought this was funny. I just shared this the other day on the social medias. It's on page 331, so just a few pages back from where I'm at. This after Pendergrass shot Harrison, his coat under Harrison's head. Harrison told him he had been shot over the heart, but Chalmers did not believe it. There was little blood. They argued. Chalmers told Harrison he had not been shot over the heart. Harrison snapped, "I tell you I am. This is death." A few moments later, his heart stopped. He died angry, Chalmers said, because they didn't believe him. Even in death, he is emphatic and imperious. Thus ends our book report of this book that's now get too dark out to see properly. The Devil in the White City. Of course, it doesn't end my reading of it because I haven't quite finished it, but that ends my talking of it. And so if I have any interesting passages left to show, well, I don't have any to show, but if there are interesting that I could want to show, which I've had that happen before. I'm like, God damn it, this would be a good passage. Gotta have to miss out on that because this ends the tale of the book report of Greg Huffman, Greg Dratzev Huffman, or Greg Everett Huffman, Gregory Hufferman, Greg Cia Huffer. Alright, but signing off, that's the book, and bye and shit, bye.